me even hurry.
Yeah, we are now ready to read, but now continue, please.
There was no domestic violence or abuse in Israel then. Do you know why?
Why?
Because Exodus 21:23 says, but if there's serious injury, you are to take life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. So if you were to touch your wife, then the same thing will be done to you. So that had settled the issue of domestic violence and abuse at the time, because you cannot touch an Israelite man or woman, the exact same thing will be done to you. So there was no physical
contending that part. Yes.
So that was why you will find that the Bible is silent on domestic violence or abuse. Only in the book of Proverbs 21:19, where Solomon said, it is better to dwell in the wilderness than in the house with a nagging and contentious woman. The issue here now is the Jewish divorce. Now, it is important you know that the Bible is a summation of Jewish history. So the divorce here was the Jewish divorce, which originated from Deuteronomy 24:1, which gives a man free hand to divorce for whatever reason, which made women more like commodities to be traded. You know, you can, for no reason, you could say you are no longer interested because you found a weakness or something you do not like, or she fell out of favor. Now, importing the Jewish religion into another, the Jewish custom of divorce into our own contemporary custom and Christianity. You see, if a man beats a woman here, they don't beat the man back. If the woman beats a man here, they don't do it. But that was what they did in Israel. So they had settled their domestic violence, but we had not. So you cannot now bring in that law, because what happens to the abuser? Nothing. So there is already someone getting away with grievous bodily harm. But when you now bring a system where a man has no need, do you understand? I don't like you again. You are going too old. The way you walk, safe, you know. And then I can divorce you for whatever reason. Then you now bring it here, that when a man beats a woman, you keep telling them, you know, God hates divorce. It was the Jewish system of divorce that the Bible was referring to, because they gave no reason to the man. And it is here in Matthew, it said, can you divorce your wife for any and every reason? That should show you that that was their custom. Now, let me leave that and go. I want to talk now about the attitude of Christ to the divorced. I'm going somewhere here. When you look at John chapter 4, there was a story of the Samaritan woman who Christ came and sat on the well and said, give me water to drink. And the woman said, what do you have with me? You Jews, why are you talking to the Samaritan? Because you people have no dealings with us. People did not know that after the death of King Solomon, the kingdom of Israel split into the southern kingdom, that is the kingdom of Judah, and the northern kingdom, that is Samaria. So Samaria was also a kingdom in Israel, but they were the northern and southern, and there was this fracas between both of them. So this woman, the Samaritan woman, was also a Jew. People thought or think that they are from another race. They are also Jews. Now, this is the problem. When Christ got here, and in verse 18 says, the woman answered, I have no husband. Jesus said to her, thou hast said well, I have no husband, because thou hast had 5 husbands, and the man that you have now is not your husband. 5 husbands. That means she was divorced 5 times. You know the funny thing? The the woman replied, I perceive you're a prophet. And verse 20 says, our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and you say it is in Jerusalem. Jesus said to her, believe me, the hour comes when you shall neither in this mountain or in Jerusalem worship the Father. You worship what you do not know, for salvation is Jesus now said something astounding in verse 23. He said, but the hour comes, and now is, when the true worshippers of God will worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeks such to worship him. And Jesus said, I know when the Messiah comes, he would tell us these things. And look at this, John 4 verse 26, which is the highlight of everything. Jesus said, I that speak to you am he. That is the only person in the Bible that Jesus told that I am the Messiah. Remember, the disciples of John came. Are you the one, or should we look for another? He didn't answer. When these people came, some call you Elijah, some call you, he did not say, I am the one. He asked, who do you say I am? Peter said, I believe he did not say, I am. The only person Christ revealed himself to was a woman who had been divorced 5 times. Everything the woman kept saying, Jesus kept bringing her back. That worship, there is a time when you will not worship here or there. God wants people that will worship him in spirit and truth. Now Jesus set a precedent here that it is your worship we need. We don't need your status.
Okay.
She was divorced 5 times. Jesus did not accuse her and say, you cannot do this because you are a divorcee. The way we look down on divorcees and women that have separated and men that are separated. Jesus kept on and said, I that speak to you am he. He revealed himself to her. She is the only one in the scripture that Jesus personally revealed himself to as the Messiah. The woman then left her pot and went her way. You know the funny thing? The woman's name at the point of meeting Jesus is unknown, but she was later baptized Photin, that is P-H-O-T-I-N. Do you know? After her encounter with Jesus, it was said in history that she brought so many to the Christian faith, and she discipled equal to the apostles, to the extent that it got the attention of Emperor Nero, who was the emperor in Rome, who ordered that she be brought before him to answer for her faith. She suffered many tortures and died as a martyr after being thrown into a dry well. Every 4th Sunday after the Passover, it is known as the Sunday of the Samaritan woman in Israel. She is also celebrated on the 4th Friday of every Lent in Mexico, where schools and businesses give out fruits and drinks in the name of the Samaritan woman. Now, this is the point where I am going to with all this. How can some of you now say because a person is divorced or separated, they can no longer serve God in the capacity of a pastor or a worker in the church? Meanwhile, this woman who had been divorced 5 times was used by God to the extent that in history she was known as the greatest female evangelist, the Samaritan woman. God used her more than any other and every other. But now, because you are separated or divorced, not by your own choice, maybe because you married wrong, maybe because of the hardship, irreconcilable differences, the violence, the abuse, the malice, the jealousy drove you out. And then in your church, you are told you cannot serve in the capacity as a worker, or in an organization they will have a dinner because you are separated or divorced. They treat you different. The Samaritan woman, let it remind you that that was the woman who God used as an evangelist the most in the New Testament, not in the Old Testament. She was equal to the apostles, and she died the deaths of the apostles, thrown down a dry well. It is a shame on any church or any institution that tells a separated man or woman that they cannot be workers. I married a divorcee, and when I married her, she was going to the biggest church, and she was told to step down from her worker role because she ran away from an abusive marriage. Now, her marriage broke her back. Her marriage left her with one tube. Her marriage had led to so much beatings that even 20 years after her marriage and remarried to me, I'm still taking her to the hospital to treat injuries she sustained in her marriage 18 years ago. But no, they say she cannot serve because she had the boldness to leave. She left with a pair of slippers, Euro and Buba, and 200 naira. She did not have a place to go. Do you understand? It is a shame on any and every institution that would tell men and women that are separated that they cannot walk, especially in the house of God. You know, it is very funny because the church cannot be God, but the idea of man and the doctrine of man. Church is for worship and salvation. If persons divorced and separated, if they are divorced and separated, it is not your business, because it is between them and God. Are you the one that died for them? Are you the one that gave your son for them? So how can it be that you will determine whether they can walk in their own father's house? But the truth is that it is not their father's house, really. It is the pastor's house. It is the elder's house. That is why he can determine who will walk and who will not walk, just because or by virtue of separation and divorce. You start treating them as if they are different. I tell people that go to organizations like this, stop going there. What is your problem? If it is Bible study, just as we have done this morning, come, we will all sit down and study the Bible and worship God together. God is not tied to a house. God is not tied to a building. God, we are the church. The church is not a building. Do you understand? Without us in the church, there is no church. It is a real shame. And this issue of keeping people in abusive marriages, telling them they cannot leave, go back. I was telling you a story 3 months ago in Ajegule. I got a call. A lady, she's 24 years old, married to a man that's 27 years old. The man she's a hairdresser. But before she makes anybody's hair, she has to tell her husband that she wants to make this person's hair. The husband did not allow her get a shop, but would insist that she makes the hair right in front of the house. That is by the door of their parlor, as in to enter there. That is where she will put. So how many people can come and say, you don't have why would I come to your house and be sitting down? So she couldn't do business. So one day the man was gone and somebody came and said, please do my hair. As she was making the hair, this man came in and saw her making the hair. And the fight was, you did not tell me that you wanted to make somebody's hair. As in, she has to tell him, if you are coming, I want to make, and if he doesn't like you, she's not going to make. And that was where the fight started. Called her inside, beat her to the extent that he took the plasma TV and broke on her. She passed out. And he went to the kitchen and brought a turning spoon, omorugu, opened her legs and shoved it in. They had to rush her to the hospital because she was totally unconscious. She fainted. The doctor had to use a pipe to get out urine and all that. But the next thing, here comes clergy saying he has come to apologize. Go back to the house. Of course, I had the man. When the matter came, I asked the man, like 27 years old, I said, what did she do? He said in Yoruba, Obiminuni. I said, Obienu. The father, the mother, all of them were there. People had prevailed on the father and forgive. But do you know if this girl will be able to give birth again after he shoved? Do you know what omorugun is? What you used to turn ewedu. But then they say, stay. Because God hates divorce. God hates Jewish divorce, the Jewish culture of divorce, because there was no guideline. It depended on the feeling of a man. At his whim, at his caprice, he can say he's not doing. And that was why when Jesus said, except for adultery, that was the only vice in society then. There was no domestic abuse or violence because Exodus 12 had settled it. If you touch anybody, the same thing you do. Eye for an eye, burn for burn, wound for wound, foot for foot will be done to you. So you couldn't really touch anybody.
But don't you think that just because Exodus had settled that, New Testament also said when they slap you one cheek, you turn the other cheek, was now a thing? Couple.
So you are.
I'm just saying.
How can
I'm not deviating.
You
I'm trying to
marry a person. You marry.
I'm trying to say maybe that's why they believe that you should do.
Alright, you should do what? In fact, come, let me slap you. So that you don't.
That's domestic violence.
I can't marry you and then slap you and be telling you to turn the other cheek. It doesn't make sense. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a Domestic Violence and Abuse Awareness Month. If you are in abuse, you need to speak up. People are dying before their time. I can't even tell you what is going on. I have stories that if you come to my office, I was at the state CID, I work with them, they're the gender unit, and the 2IC looked at me and said, how do you sleep that I, as a police officer, cannot see this? What people are going through, and then you now start quoting what you did not even research to see that this is not the kind of divorce that Jesus was referring to. He was referring to the Jewish custom of divorce, which held everything to be at the discretion and at the feeling of a man.